Hey guys, it's Marina with Artworthy Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. Happy Friday, everybody! I'm so glad to be on with you guys. We are at the very end of the month and finishing up a lot of watermelon summery themed paintings. And today our painting is going to be just a little bit different. This is an art journal page again. However, it's going to be a little bit more on the lettering side and on the just typography side because I was inspired to do something food related. So we've already been doing watermelons and food and all of that fun stuff, but I'm really excited for today. So I hope you will stick around and watch us finish this one from start to finish. So as you can see, I have it sketched out and it says, "Come to the feast." So I'm about to read the scripture that was inspired by, but that's a line from a hymn that I know. So you guys should tell me, do you know the hymn that says that? It's "All things are ready, come to the feast," and then it goes on. I think that's like the very first line. Anyway, this is a line that is, really, I mean, if you know that song, you'll start singing the whole thing as soon as you hear that line. But anyway, I thought I want to make this page because I got a really fun t-shirt today. Hey, Anita. Oh, she says, "Happy Friday. I'm just going to watch today and do it tomorrow." Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry you're not feeling super well, but thanks for watching anyway. You are so sweet. So let me go ahead and, Pam hasn't heard that song. Well, it's a really, I would say fairly well-known hymn, and you can probably find it online. So Google "Come to the Feast" hymn, and I'm sure it will come up. Let me make sure I put this up real fast. For those of you that don't know, I do art journaling every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Central, and 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. So no matter where you're at, you can catch it at a decent hour. And I'm going to go ahead and read you the scripture that inspired this, and then actually, let me back up. I will show you my t-shirt first. Whoops, it's on this side. I guess I got to move this so you can see. So it says, "Let's eat," and it has like a skewer and a one of those spatulas for cooking outside by the fire, and it says Luke 14:23. So let's see. I wanted to read that scripture for you. I don't have my Bible open. I should have my Bible, but I have my computer open, and I want to read this passage for you. Let me grab it. Yes, okay. So I was like trying to find it. So this particular scripture is the verse that says, "And the Lord said unto the servant, Go out into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled." Now, out of context, that may not even make sense to you. So I really wanted to read the whole thing. So I'm going to back up to the beginning of this parable that Jesus told in the book of Luke. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it's also in Matthew. Maybe it's in more than just those two. But anyway, I didn't look that up ahead of time. But Mom just got this t-shirt. I think she's got a subscription or maybe a notifications from this t-shirt website or whatever. And this one is basically encouraging you to share the gospel, be prepared for the feast and be sharing about it, because we all want to be at the feast. And so since we're doing a bunch of paintings that have to do with food, I thought that was a really fun inspiration for my next painting. And it's just kind of perfect because I'm quite food oriented. That's so funny. I actually had a trip we had a trip to Idaho recently, but a while back I went to Idaho to visit some of the same people for I think that was my 18th birthday trip. So anyway, I went to visit them, and it was funny because our friend was cooking us dinner, and I don't know what it was, but every time she would make something, apparently I would get super excited. Like she'd be like, "We're having tacos," and I'd be like, "Yum, that sounds so good." And then she'd say, we're gonna eat, I don't know, it was something simple like pancakes for breakfast. And I'm like, pancakes. Like I got so excited, and she was like, "Okay, you are like way too excited over food." And I'm like, "Oh no, am I that food oriented?" So for a little while I had a profile like avatar thing that just had this really big grin on its face and a fork and a knife. And it was just like, ah! And my friend in Idaho said, oh, that's totally you. And she's like, yeah, that is exactly you. And I'm like, I didn't know it was that food or, well, now I have realized it. I guess I didn't realize I was, but I get excited. I just like good food, that's all. So anyway, when mom had this t-shirt come in and it was my size, I was like, ah, yes. So it's kind of a funny double meaning. So it says, let's eat, but it's really pointing you back to the gospel. So let's go ahead and let me see if I missed any comments. Oh, Anita, you know, things already come to the feast. I'm trying to think of the name of that song. It may be Come to the Feast. I'm not sure. Mom, if you know the name of that hymn, you could comment about it. Hey, Bonnie, I'm so glad to see you. We've missed you. So glad to see you on. Hey, Emily. Hi, how are you? Okay, so I'm going to read that scripture, that whole passage. It's not super long, but I want to read it to you just so you have the context. And this is a parable that Jesus tells. And here's how that passage starts, just to set it up. And it came to pass as he went into the house of one of the chief Pharisees. Oops, let me make sure I didn't. Oh, I've got the wrong one. Hang on. Oh. Okay. I was like, am I going too far back? Okay, so there's a little in-between part, but basically he's talking to the Pharisees. I want to skip down to verse 6. And they could, verse 7, sorry. Verse 7 of Luke 14, verse 7. I will get this right eventually. Jesus is speaking, and he put forth a parable to those which were bidden, when he marked how they chose out the chief rooms, saying unto them, when thou art bidden of any man to a wedding, sit not down in the highest room, lest a more honorable man than thou be bidden of him. And he that bade thee and him come and say to thee, give this man place, and thou begin with shame to take the lowest room. But when thou art bidden, go and sit down in the lowest room, that when he that bade thee cometh, he may say unto thee, friend, go up higher. Then shalt thou have worship in the presence of them that sit at meat with thee. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Sorry for the bing in the background. Okay, so talking about humility, and I want to make sure. Okay, so he's basically talking about humility and how it's going back to that lesson he teaches us, that the least shall be the greatest, like the servant is the greatest. That's why Jesus came, not to be served, but to serve others and give himself as a ransom for many. So that's kind of the setup. And then I'm going to go into the parable that he actually tells. So in verse 16, it starts off, then said he unto him, a certain man made a great supper and bade many, and sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, come, for all things are now ready. And they all with one consent began to make excuse. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray thee, have me excused. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. I pray thee, have me excused. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. So that servant came and showed his lord these things. Then the master of the house, being angry, said to his servant, go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in hither the poor and the maimed and the halt and the blind. And the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. And the Lord said unto the servant, go out into the highways and hedges, and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say unto you that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. And there went great multitudes with him, and he turned and said unto them, if any man come to me, and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? Lest haply after he hath laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, All that behold it began to mock him, saying, This man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king, going to make war against another king, sitteth not down first and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is a great way off, he sendeth an embassage and desireth conditions of peace. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple. You could just keep reading because it just goes and goes and goes and goes and is so, so good. I have a hard time stopping. If I don't like Mark, start here, stop here. I just keep going. So I read a little bit more than I wanted to, but the point is, first off, that passage about him sending out the invitation and then people refusing, like the basically the elite that were first invited refused. It's like, what is wrong with you? You know, you've got this amazing feast and you don't want to go. And then him sending out the invitation to the others and just going and getting whoever he can get so that the feast will be full. There's so many layers, like many people have preached and had lots of different meanings and layers of meaning to that passage. But basically the only thing I wanted to really get across was, number one, when you are invited to the feast, do not miss the invitation. God has given you the invitation for eternal life, and he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. And that invitation is out there for everyone to accept. Don't miss the invitation, number one. Number two, don't forget to invite people. Like, don't be one of those guys. Don't be that guy. So when you are out in the world and you can shine your light, do not be ashamed of the gospel of Christ. And, you know, proclaim the gospel. God gave us such good news. Just think about eternity, and we can't even grasp eternity from one end of nothing, you know, at the beginning and all the way to the end of whatever, forever. And then our life is just this little dot on that line. Everything here is not even going to feel like anything compared to the thousands and thousands and thousands of years that it will feel like in heaven. So invest in heavenly treasures. And number one, make sure that you are at the feast. And number two, share the feast with others. So anyway, there's a lot more to that passage that you could get, but that's basically the most important part. Okay. Yeah. My mom is commenting the dash. A lot of people say, you know, you have the date that you were born and the date that you die. But really what matters is that little dash in between. And that's the part that makes the difference in eternity. There's a song I think it's by Francesca Battistelli, where she talks about Jesus came to spend 9 months in a mother's womb, 3 days in a borrowed tomb. But what matters is the time in between. I think it's called The Time in Between. It's a really beautiful song if you haven't heard it. All righty. Without further ado, come to the feast. That's the page we're doing today. Let me see if I missed anybody. Hey, Jackie, I'm glad you're on live. Oh, yeah, Emily, I totally love food and totally love the Bible, too. If we can combine those two, I'm happy. You notice when Jesus was sharing the gospel, he often fed the crowd first. Mom often says that if you don't feed their stomach, they can't hear. So anyway, Jesus shared the gospel oftentimes at a meal or after he'd made sure he fed the crowd, which I think is really cool. Okay, so we're going to do this little bit of lettering. I did take a picture of this ahead of time, but if you want to take a screenshot while I'm holding it here to trace later, I'm going to hold it for a few seconds here. You can zoom in on it and trace it if you want to for the lettering we're doing today. The watercolor I have today is my Komorebi set by Mozart. I also have my size 8 round Master's Touch brush and my watercolor palette and my water in my cup. And all I'm going to do for this, I'm going to keep this page somewhat simple, but the lettering is the tough part. Just like looking at lettering, all I did was look up, I think my keywords were retro, signage, script, alphabet. Basically, that's what I wrote. And I'm going to get some red, and I'm going to still be sticking. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't start with red. I should start with my green. I'm still sticking to my really fun watermelon palette. So those dark greens, I'm going to use my Peak Green, some dark greens and bright greens to start with. And we're going to do that watermelon colored palette from here down, starting at the top. So at the top of these letters, I'm going to use a really true bright green right there. Just kind of fill the tops of these letters in with green. And it's going to be just like, I would call it like crayon green. It's like real true green. And my lettering is already sketched out. So all I'm doing is coloring in this like a coloring book. But I'm just trying to get the tops of these. And we'll make that faded color going down just like we've been doing all month long. And hopefully get this cohesive like watermelon themed set of pages all together at the end. And I'll try to put a post out there showing all them together so you guys can see how fun it is to have a theme that goes across several pages. All right, I do want to move this over because oftentimes you guys say this is an easier view. All right, here we go. So see how I've colored in the top? Now this one right here is a little higher, and I might move that down later, but I just kind of want to skim the top of those with green. So you're just coloring that in. Next, I'm going to get some clean water and bright green, yellow and green together just like that. Oops. And I'm going to pull that color down. So it's now turning into kind of a chartreuse type of green. And I'm just pulling that green down into the middle of those letters now. You can kind of start to even up where my green ends here. And I'm also being real careful to make sure there's no what they call tide lines. I want to bring this just a little bit closer. Hey, Daniel. I'm glad you jumped on. Mom says fun, friendly, fantastic, fabulous Friday. Thank you for the really fun, what do you call that? There's a word for that. Guys, what's the word for when, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. When you have a set of words or a name of a company or a title of a book or something, and they all start with the same letter. Isn't it? I think it starts with an A. Oh, I'm blanking. I can't think of it. There's a word for that. What is it called? Somebody Google that. When all the words start with the same. I don't think it's an acronym. Like an acronym is when you have like, yeah, so I don't think it's acronym, Bonnie and Daniel. That's what I was first trying to think of. But there's another word for, like an acronym is if it says, no, I'm not thinking of any, like SCUBA, SCUBA. SCUBA is an acronym because each letter stands for something. But there's a word for what, like when you say Holly Hobby, they both start with an H. When they both start with the same letter for a name of some alliteration. I think that's it. That's the one. I think that is it. Okay, thank you. My brain was dying. Okay, Mom, thank you for the alliteration. Wow, if I can even say that. It's like when you can't think of the word, you just really need it. I'm gonna pull some light yellowy color down a little further on these letters. So this will be like the part of the melon that starts to lose flavor. And you want it to blend into the green some. So make sure that as you're blending these colors down, the green is not just like a stark, I'm always using that word incorrectly. Not like a straight line across. You want the light yellow color to fade up into the green. So the yellow I used is basically my number 3 Brilliant Yellow. And then I have, I just realized you can't see where I'm grabbing color from. Over here. Mom, I can sound out that comment just like you wrote it. Just chilling, using my brain. It's funny, in our family, I don't know why we say this. We must have got it from some movie or something, but we're always like, my brain. And when you say my, we just say my brain. I don't know, my brain. Okay, just chilling, using my brain. Good job, Mom. Okay, so I'm using Brilliant Yellow, and I'm fading it. I'm watering it down quite a bit with water, which is how you water things down, and then adding a tiny bit of red, and that's making it a warmer color. Because we're about to switch into red, so I really want these colors to flow seamlessly into each other. I'm going slower than I would if I wasn't on live because I'm talking too much, but the reason you want to move kind of quickly is because the faster you move, the easier it is to keep the colors blending together. So I'm having to kind of scrub them out a little bit to get them to actually blend. If I was going a little faster, I wouldn't have to do that, but that's okay. Thankfully, this mixed media journal is quite forgiving, and it will let me do some of that without the paper tearing up. This is not watercolor paper, but it works pretty well for watercolors nonetheless. All right, so now at this point, we don't want too much rind on our watermelon ratio, like a little bit of rind and a lot more watermelon. So I'm going to flip my page actually upside down. Isn't that looking cool already though? It's very a gradient look. It looks really fun. Bonnie says, that's it. Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, that was the one. Mom's drinking some water. Oh yeah. Yeah. You guys be praying for Mom. She's working on feeling better, and her birthday is on Tuesday. I know what day it is. I've been planning for it for a long time. Her birthday is on Tuesday, and she's just been a little bit just like maybe fighting a little bit of a cold. So we've like dosed her up on a bunch of good nutrition and stuff, and hopefully she'll be good to go by Tuesday. Thank you, Bonnie. You're super sweet. All right, so right here in my palette, I have mixed up a combination of Crimson, my number 17, and Carmine, my number 18, red over here. And that is because the Crimson is really true red, and a lot of the watermelons you see are more pinkish. They have a little bit more pink in them. So that's why I've added the Carmine, because it has a more pinky tone to it. And then I'm going to add some water, and I'm going to start on the bottom half. Be careful not to rub your hand across where you've already done green. And I'm going to start on this bottom half and just fill this in real careful. Let me actually go this way so that I don't rub my hand. And I'm just going to fill these in really carefully with red. Now this is fun because it's just like coloring in a coloring page. Once you have the lettering drawn, this is like the easy part. You can just color it all in. Now take your time. I will say I have a lot of practice having good control with my paintbrushes. If you are following along, do not try to go super fast. If you feel like you're like, oh no, I'm getting messy because you're trying to keep up with me, slow down. It's worth it to slow down. I just happen to have used this paintbrush a lot, and I know how to get the color down fast and get the right width and everything and get it smooth. But just take your time and get all those little edges and color in this whole thing. Somebody's going to be on here and be like, what happened? It's upside down. Oh, Emily, you're super sweet. Mom is hangry. Uh-oh. Feed thyself, Mom. I did give her a big protein shake this morning. She was like a giant cup of it, which is really good. All right, so I'm filling all this in. And now, if you remember when we were doing the other pages with watermelon, I would often come back and kind of muddy these up a little, but I'm going kind of slow, so it may be hard to do that. The reason I would kind of come back and mess up the red areas is because if you look at a watermelon, it's not like a perfect solid red. It's, like a apple, we would think of like a really shiny, perfect solid red, or a cherry. But the watermelon has kind of this watery look. And it's kind of pink in some areas and kind of red in some areas. So I would often come back and sweep around on the red to kind of mix it up and make it not look so perfect. So I will try to do that later, but it is already drying because I'm going somewhat slow. So I don't want to put too much color down right now. because it'll make it harder for me to do that later because it is drying fast. I'm not sure if that made sense. But anyway, I guess I'm saying be okay with it not being exactly like a watermelon. You're just basically going for color. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that pretty? I don't know. I love, 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 love this retro font. Let's see. I Googled a font. I think I just Googled a font. I don't know if I know the name of it. But if you look at old signs, they often have this kind of bubbly script font. So if you're trying to get that look across on your journal page, and if you missed what I said earlier, the keyword number one that I usually look up is alphabet, because if you don't say alphabet in your Google search, you won't get every letter. You'll just get like a picture of an example of a couple of phrases with the font, but you won't necessarily get every letter. So put in font alphabet, and then I put in retro signage script. The reason I put script is because if you just do retro signage, you'll get a lot of block fonts. And I wanted this curly stuff, almost like an old soda pop shop or ice cream parlor or something. So that's why I put that in. This little T. I wasn't sure if I'd come up that high with the red, and now I have, so I'm going to fill in this little T over here. This is so cute, you guys. It's actually cool because a lot of times I'm trying to keep the color super smooth, and since I don't care about it being smooth, it's like more fun because I don't have to worry about little bits of it drying before the others, and that just makes that modeled sort of look. Anyway, hey Preston, so glad you're on. You're awesome. Hey Emily, she says she has to go. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for saying you're going to watch it later. That'll be fun. I can't wait to see your comments later. Have a blessed day. I'm glad you were on today. Okay, I'm going to fill in the rest of this little tail. One thing I changed on this font is it had these really stiff, flat ends. Like at the end of this curl, it was a flat edge, and I curved it because I wanted it more soft. So I curved the end of it. I really like that look better. I think it makes it look more friendly. Okay, I'm gonna have to go slow here. What's funny is I normally have my disclaimer that I'm about to start painting and I'm gonna stop talking. I'm about to start writing and I'm gonna stop talking because I have to write. That's normally, if you guys watch a lot, you know I have a disclaimer when I start to write. But because this is already written out, I don't even have to stop talking because it's already drawn, which is so cool. This last bit is so big, I'm being quicker than I should, so I'm like not getting the edges as smooth as I want them, but I'm just gonna slow down a little. Get those edges, and you see I'm taking my time to get all those little edges in. Okay, I'm gonna switch to my liner brush right now. So I'm gonna clean that brush off real well, and then get my, actually I have a in-between size that might work better. This is a size 3 by Liquitex, and I'm not sure what it would be the equivalent of, but if you have a brush about this size, that's about what I'm using. And that will let me fill in these in-between ones without it being too small. Okay, it's kind of a balance when you're doing watercolor. You want a big enough brush to get the color moving all the way across the page before it dries. But then you also need it small enough to do details, so that's always a little bit of a challenge. Okay, I'm going to flip this over. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a transition. So I'm going to start with red at the bottom here. Like that. And then go all the way across just with red at the bottom of the lettering. Like that. And we're going to use these little words to create a transition between the big red word at the bottom and the green at the top. Okay, so there's my red. Start with that. Clean my brush off really well. Then I'm going to come back and pick up that orangey yellow that I made earlier. So I'm actually going to grab a little bit of this, pull some of that yellow over. Get a little bit of that. Okay, so this is a mixture of brilliant yellow and a little bit of red, and I've watered it down a lot, so it's very watery. And I'm going to use that to color in the top of my letters right here, and they will be sort of a peachy color. So let me get that just a little bit closer as I do that one. And this will show you how I'm transitioning between those two colors. Okay. I need like a super smooth, like, I don't know, arm or something for my camera so it can just go shoo instead of having to unscrew it. But anyway, this works. So a little bit of orange at the top. It's like an orangey peachy color. And then I'm using my brush to blend it in with the red, kind of just touching the red and letting it blend. And that will make it a gradient again on these letters, which will look really nice moving up into this top lettering section. So it just basically goes from red to red and pinkish color to that yellowy pink color to this chartreuse green and to a real dark green at the very top. Like that. So that's the basic idea. This one looks a little darker. Let me smooth that out. Just like that. All right, looking good, looking real good. Okay, so for right now, I'm going to blow dry this a little bit so that it dries quicker, and then we can move on to the next part. I've got the blow dryer. My little handy dandy portable blow dryer that helps me speed up the process just a little bit. So I'm going to mute myself for a half a second. You guys can talk amongst yourself while I get this last little bit dried. Okay, here we go. I just realized I didn't unmute myself. So I'm just going to erase some of those pencil lines now that I got it totally dried off. And just be careful with your eraser. Be absolutely sure that your lettering is dry before you take an eraser to it, because the last thing you want is just to peel up the work you've just done or smear some watercolor paint everywhere. So make sure it's totally dry before you start erasing. That's a really good idea. All right, time to the feast. Now, oh yeah. So what I'm going to do is grab my Micron pen. I have a size 5. Actually, I have smaller sizes too, but this one will work really well. This is a size 5, which is a 0.5 millimeter line Micron brush, and it's also archival quality. So I'm going to outline these letters because especially this light yellow right here is not going to pop up really well without this outline. So I'm going to outline this, just carefully outline these letters. And the edge of my lettering isn't perfectly crisp. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfectly crisp. It'll still look great, as you will see. Your lettering doesn't have to be absolutely perfect to look fun. Plus, as I always remind my art journalers in the Artworthy Journal Club, this is a journal. Remember, at the end of the day, this is an art journal. It's not a piece of fine art that thousands of people are going to look at. I mean, they can if you want them to, but it's for fun, so don't stress about it. So I'm just going to outline these because I want the words to be really readable. And again, take your time on this part. You don't want to have done all of that painting and everything and then just kind of like accidentally draw a weird line across the middle of your painting or something. So, and if you don't have a Micron pen, a couple other things you can use is a one of those felt tip pens. Those aren't, I don't think those are archival quality, but they're like a, they come in a lot of different colors, but you can use the black ones. You can also use a Sharpie pen. They have a Sharpie artist type pen that's a fine tip. You can also use the Sharpie permanent markers that are fine tip. Those work really well. They don't have quite as fine a tip as some of the Micron pens do, but they still work well for something simple like this. Okay, come to the, oh, Bonnie, we miss you too. Yeah, there were some Micron pens at the Shop of Shalom in Halsey that we went to yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw the picture that I posted on my personal page, but there was beautiful roses outside Shop of Shalom, so I couldn't resist taking a picture of them. They were amazing. I told Mom after we went there, like, the shop is really cute, but it would have been worth the stop just to see their roses, and a lot of them smelled so good. They had, the ones I liked the best were these amazing looking lavender purple colored roses, because even the ones that were faded were gorgeous because they just fade into this soft, dovey looking purple color. And that rose bush they had that had those on it had quite a few, so they were in all different stages of fading, and they were so pretty. I took quite a few pictures, but I only posted one. And the one that I took, I was trying to get the sunshine, and the sun was like directly overhead. And so I had to like crouch down real far and point my camera way up in the air. And then I couldn't see the screen to take the picture because it was so bright. So I just kind of took a ton of photos and then looked through them later to figure out which one actually looked nice. But I was trying to get the sun in the shot, which was totally worth it in the end. The picture turned out great. Okay, so I'm just outlining this. And notice on this lettering in particular, you don't really see the black right off the bat. But one thing I learned from a friend of mine who does a lot of painting actually on silk, banners and things like that, is that little bit of crisp black on the edge helps your eye see a solid shape. So a lot of times, even if you don't really see the color, when you first look at it, especially from a distance or on a color that's real dark anyway, you can still add that black, and you'll be surprised it will add just enough rigid structure to your lettering that your lettering will look that much more crisp on the edges. So I'd really rather this not be as outlined, but you can tell it's way easier to read like this. Like I couldn't get it to look that crisp without outlining it like that. Okay, last thing I want to do is paint a little watermelon here in the corner. So I'm going to do a quickie little watermelon, starting with my green. Now that we've done so many watermelons, I can just whip them out really fast. I'm going to use my green that I used earlier and I'm going to do a little watermelon slice like this. Little slice of watermelon down here. I'm going to do the rind. I'm just going to do this freehand. Let me back up slightly. I want this page to look a little bit more full. Oh, the bakery's open. That's awesome. Yeah, the country bakery. Fun For this green, I'm going to add a little bit of the Brilliant Green number 43 because it's a little darker. And I'm just going to add that to the very edge right here. I want the rind to be nice and deep because our red up top is quite deep. Uh-oh, I think I need to move my camera up again so you guys can see everything. All right. It looks like a smiley face right now. Smile. I'm like, I'm smiling because of the food. Okay. I was going to say something about color, but I want this a little bit darker because the color in the painting or in the lettering is real deep here. So I want that green to match. And then I'm going to take the same green and just go across the top here just a little bit on this lettering to bring that deepest green all the way to the top. And it's amazing how just a little bit more color can make such a big difference. So I've just barely touched the top of those with my green, but I'm going to clean my brush off now, get it almost, get it totally clean and then get it almost dry. Still want it a little bit wet. And I'm just going to blend that color down with basically a clean, slightly wet brush. Just blend that color down into the bright green. And that deeper green will now not look like just a stripe at the top. And this is one thing you want to move quickly on because if you don't blend it right away, it will look like just a stripe at the top of your lettering. So it's pretty simple to get that deeper green. Now these greens match, which is what we're going for. I can also use a clean brush to blend in these two greens right here. Make sure that line doesn't look too harsh. And then clean my brush off. And I'm going to start with a light yellow again, come along the bottom of this rind. And just kind of make a little clean orangey colored rind right here. Trying not to get my orange too muddy. So as you're pulling that color around, make sure your green doesn't come down into the orange too much because then it kind of defeats the purpose. You won't have the transition. You'll just have green to red, which won't work. All right, now I'm going to get my bright red again. This is my crimson and carmine red. Come right across the bottom of here. I'm going to do a little bite out of the side of the, I might do it on this side instead, right here. I'm going to do a little bite out of the side of my watermelon. Hard to make it look like teeth when you're doing it this small. Okay, how about like that? There's a little bite, like somebody took a chunk out of it. And then I'm going to bring that red across and do it kind of quickly so that it blends into the yellow. Clean my brush off so I don't get too much red on the page. And with a clean, wet brush, I'm just going to pull the rest of that red down into the peachy color, like that. Ooh, look at that. Doesn't that make you want a watermelon? I don't know. It makes me want a watermelon. Ah, yum. That looks so good. I need to bring this down just a little bit more so it's even. My rind is a little thick on this little tiny painting, but it's okay. I think it'll be fine. I want to do a little bit brighter red because I'm noticing this is real dark. So I'm going to get my straight crimson red and get it loaded up on my brush and then touch around here just to bring in some of that deeper red. And then I'm going to use a clean brush to kind of sweep that around all the way across. Look at that. Okay, that's fun. I think that's so cute. Ah, don't you want a watermelon now? Isn't that adorable? Okay, I'm going to blow dry this again, so I'm going to mute myself real fast, and then we'll finish up here in just a minute. So talk amongst yourselves. And while I'm blow drying, tell me what your favorite summer let me mute. Okay, this is now blow dried dry. Whoops. Sorry. Okay, I'm trying to make sure that you guys don't have crazy loud sound over there, and I just heard this gigantic echo come from this little camera, so hopefully it's not crazy anymore. Can you guys tell me if there's an echo? I don't think there is anymore. Okay, Bonnie says she loves watermelon. Oh, and Daniel has a little watermelon emoji. Oh, Anita says, I hope you can too. I'm not sure what that one is about. Oh, Bonnie. Oh, she maybe is responding to Bonnie. Yes, we would love to have you back. So what I was about to say is I have told the Artworthy Journal Club this before, but when you blow dry and you are blow drying watercolor, it is water. So if you're not careful, it can just blow right across the page, especially if there's a puddle of water. So you want to start, if you can see me in the little corner over there, I'm showing you this big gap between your page. You want to have your blow dryer way up here, just kind of move it and wait for things to start to dry. And once you see that the puddles are gone, then you can move your blow dryer closer and go right there. But don't just stick the blow dryer right to your page. You will blow and splatter watercolor all across your page. It will be bad. So don't do that. Oh, good. The sound is good. Yay. Thank you. I don't know why it does that. All right. So last but not least, we're going to add the little seeds to the watermelon. I have a what is this called? Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen soft tip that I'm going to use. You could use a black marker or pen or whatever you want to use, but I'm just going to add some little seeds to my watermelon. So they're going to be like little teardrop shapes all across this little watermelon. And I'm just going to make them random. And I'm making the shape look like rain kind of coming down. So the point of the teardrop shape is always at the top, and then they're just kind of at all different angles. And I'm going to go all the way up my watermelon lettering, just like that. Sort of looks like confetti. If you want it to show up better, which I'm realizing now it's a little bit dark, you can just use a brighter red. I didn't use a very bright red this time. I was trying to make the lettering really stand out. So I wanted to keep it nice and deep, but you could make the lettering a little lighter and then your little seeds will show up better. So I'm just going to add some seeds here and there, and I'm going back and forth, like leaning them at different angles. This way, and then this way. It looks like sprinkles on looks like sprinkles on a cake. So cute. Oh, that makes me want to do lettering and make it look like a little cupcake. Wouldn't that be cute? The more you paint food, the more you realize, wow, food is really forgiving. Like as a painting subject, it's very forgiving. So you can just kind of throw the colors out there and then your brain goes, oh, that's a whatever, a cupcake or ice cream or whatever. So I've really been enjoying it. I'm kind of sad that the watermelon theme is already going away, but I'm excited for next month, because we will have some real fun things happening. So I'm adding my watermelon seeds down here also to the actual watermelon. And I'm starting with kind of like a straight row of them. And then the second row is staggered just a little bit. And when I'm doing a larger watermelon painting, I use a lighter gray as we get toward the rind, because the watermelon seeds fade as you get out further. But for the smaller one, it doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, cherries would be great. Wouldn't those be great? Okay, and then for the lettering, one other thing I like to do, and we can actually add it also to the the watermelon itself, is grab either a gray or a light tan, which this happens to be light tan, and do shadowing on one side of the lettering. So I'm going to just come up along the left-hand side of the lettering, use my wide, use a wide brush stroke by using pressure, and just add that to the edge of the lettering on the left-hand side and on the bottom. And that makes your lettering just stand up off the page and pop. So you notice I have my page sideways while I'm doing that. And that's so I can get my brush pen at the right angle. You can also use highlighters. I have found that the highlighter, because it's a chisel tip, works really well. So I love using a highlighter, but I really like a neutral color. So sometimes, you know, something like a marker works a little better. I try to leave a little gap, but I haven't been doing that on the last couple of brush strokes. I try to leave a little tiny, very small white gap between my lettering and my stripe that I'm drawing right now. Somehow that makes it look like it's sort of hovering, like a shadow, instead of sitting on the page and then having a little shadow next to it. It just helps a little bit with your eye seeing that. Okay, and even on these little ones, we're doing just tiny little shading. And this is why you want a light color, because it truly is a shadow. It's not meant to be part of the lettering. In fact, if you're not into lettering, you shouldn't notice it right off the bat. If you're not like someone who does a lot of lettering who's like, ooh, because I always notice, I'm like, oh, that's how they did that. But it should not be like the first thing your eye sees. It should be very subtle. So these brush strokes are obviously very small, very thin. They're just kind of going around the lettering. And then we're going to do it on the big lettering as well. And I'm going to be more careful to make sure I have a gap, because I do definitely want this one to look like it's hovering a little bit. And notice I'm only going on the bottom and on the left edge. So like right here. And then going down this edge, going down this edge, going down this edge, and then this bottom. So it's all the bottom, the left and bottom. Look at that. Isn't that cool? That just makes it go doing and stand right up from the page, which is really fun. I'm also keeping my pen at an angle so that it follows the angle of the lettering as well. Here's a little bit difficult because it's kind of a tight squeeze, but I'm just going to be careful and go slow. Another reason to use gray or a light tan is because if you do mess up, it's not that dark, so it really doesn't show. It kind of hides mistakes. So that's a good reason to use that. So see that little white gap, that little thin white gap between the lettering and the shadow? Kind of makes it stand up from the page. Let me hold it up here. You see that little tiny thin white gap that's between those? Just makes it look like it's hovering. This is so cool. I actually discovered that. I didn't take a class on that in particular, or like even a class on this kind of lettering. I actually just kind of discovered it by accident. I distinctly remember I was in the hospital, in a hospital room with my Nana while she was in the hospital before she got diagnosed with cancer. And I was just doodling in this journal that we had picked up somewhere, because I'm so artsy that I can't go very long without having some kind of creative outlet. So Mom had picked up these coloring books or something, and I was just drawing in them. I wasn't even coloring them in. I was just using them for paper and drawing in them. And there was a blank page, and I started doing lettering, and then I had this gray marker with a flat edge, and I started kind of trying to create a shadow, and I figured out how to do that shading. So I'm not an expert at it, but it definitely makes a difference when you do your lettering and it stands out like that. Isn't that cool? I'm going to do a little bit of shadow. I'm going to kind of make this one look like for real. For reals, man. Go, I guess I'm going to go kind of like a curve like that. Well, maybe I can bring it. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to create a shadow that matches the shadow we already have. without being weird. Yeah, I think that's good enough. It should probably be more like a circle on the ground, but it's okay. We'll go like that. That'll work. Close enough. All right, so there's my little watermelon page. I think it's really cute. I also need to do my day and journaling on here, but that is all I have for you guys today. So I hope you really enjoyed that. Let me go like this so I can say bye. And thank you for joining me again this Friday. If you missed it earlier, I'm going to put the banner back up. I have art journaling every Friday, and in the morning, unless you're on the East Coast, then it's at 1:30. So take a screenshot if you want to be here again. My flower is in my face. I'm going to turn that flower that way. And God bless all of you. Remember to come to the feast and invite others to join you. And go back to the beginning if you don't know what I mean by that. All right. God bless you guys. Have a happy, happy, happy Friday, and I'll see you next time. Bye.